No one ever told you this about pain. That maybe it's not here to destroy you, maybe, or it's here to wake you up. Carl Jung once said, "He who looks outside dreams. He who looks inside awakens." Maybe what you're going through right now isn't a failure. Maybe it's not a breakdown or a crisis. Maybe it's the beginning of an awakening. You've been feeling strange lately, tired, disconnected, like you're drifting away from your own life, and you can't quite explain why. And then the thought comes, what's wrong with me? But what if I told you there's nothing wrong, that you're not broken, that what you're feeling right now then is a sign, a calling, a whisper from the universe saying, wake up, there's more than this. The great lie. They made us believe that feeling bad means being broken. There's a lie that's been told so well, so often, that most of us believed it without question. The lie that if you feel sad, lost, or tired of life, it means you're sick, that there's something broken inside you, something that needs to be fixed. That's the language of the modern world. Fix, optimize, upgrade, perform. But what if what you're feeling isn't a flaw, but a process? What if your sadness isn't a system failure, but the beginning of an inner cleansing? Alan Watts said that pain is the process of consciousness being born. It's like every discomfort is trying to pull you away from the surface and push you deeper within. But the world doesn't teach us that. The world wants you to get back to normal as fast as possible, to smile quickly, to post, to consume, to move on. No one prepared us for the silence of awakening. No one told us that when you start to truly see the world, the first thing you experience is grief. Grief for everything you once believed. Grief for the illusions that used to distract you. Grief for an old version of yourself that no longer fits. And yes, in that grief, you feel lost. But not because you're sick, because you're healing. You're letting go of what the world told you to be and starting to discover who you truly are. This phase is lonely, I know, but it's not the end. It's the beginning of a life you can't name yet, but you've already started to feel it. The signs of awakening. What you're feeling isn't weakness, it's clarity arriving. There are very subtle signs, almost invisible, that awakening is happening inside you. But since no one ever taught you how to recognize them, you interpret them as weakness, as a crisis, as failure, for example. You begin to distance yourself from certain people, from shallow conversations, from noisy environments. You start to realize that not all silence is loneliness. And in fact, say it calms you, that's a sign. Another. You start questioning things you used to accept without thinking. The speed of society, the meaning of work, the way people live just to maintain an image. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, once said, "Just because the majority does something doesn't mean it's right. The wise man is the one who walks the other way if necessary." When you start feeling out of place in the world, it may be because you're finally starting to feel connected to yourself. Another sign, deep exhaustion. Not physical exhaustion, but soul exhaustion. Like your body is still here, but your essence is trying to escape from a life that no longer makes sense. Seneca, in his Letters on Life, wrote, "While we try to please everyone, we lose ourselves, and we only realize it when it's too late." Awakening often begins like this, with the feeling that you no longer belong in the same place, that something is wrong with the world. But slowly, you realize the world has always been like this, and it's you who is seeing it clearly for the first time. Buddha taught that suffering arises from attachment, but he also said that pain is inevitable on the path to enlightenment. In other words, if it's hurting, maybe it's because you're close to discovering something real, something that's yours, something eternal. And when you begin to find meaning in your pain, it transforms.
If you like philosophy, self-development, and questioning everything, you are in the right place. Subscribe to this channel.
The crossing. What happens after awakening begins. No one awakens overnight. Awakening isn't a sudden spark, it's a crossing. And like every true crossing, it happens in the dark. First, you begin to undress. You remove the masks you wore to please others. You let go of the roles that defined you for years. The successful one, the strong one, the funny one, the productive one. One by one they fall away, and for a while you feel like no one. And that's scary. Because in today's culture, being no one is the greatest sin. But Lao Tzu, the Taoist sage, said, "When I let go of who I thought I was, I became who I am, and that's when the magic begins." When you no longer have labels to uphold, a silent space begins to open within you, a space where peace doesn't depend on anyone, where silence becomes the answer, and time stops being a race and becomes presence. This doesn't mean you'll stop suffering, but it does mean the suffering will change its function. It no longer drowns you. It begins to show you the way. Krishnamurti once said, "It is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society." And maybe that's why you've been feeling so strange, because slowly you're starting to de-adapt and beginning to live in truth. At first this crossing may feel like a loss, but eventually you'll understand. You didn't lose anything, you simply came home. Silence as a teacher. When letting go is what actually saves you. At some point during the crossing you'll notice something strange. The pain doesn't start to fade when you defeat it, but when you stop fighting it. That might sound odd in a world that taught you to react to everything, to fix, explain, resist, and fight. But there comes a moment when the only way out is silence. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of presence. The silence that doesn't try to understand everything right now, that doesn't demand answers, but trusts that something is being revealed, even in the darkness. Buddha himself went through this. Before reaching enlightenment, he sat in silence, beneath the fig tree, not fighting, not asking, just being present with whatever arose. And Socrates, the father of Western philosophy, said, "True wisdom comes in knowing that we know nothing." When you stop fighting what you feel, something inside you relaxes, and in that space, a calm begins to emerge, one you've never felt before. It's like finally saying, "Okay, I don't know what's happening, but I'm here." And that simple being here is more powerful than 1,000 spiritual theories. You don't need to understand everything now. Awakening is a path, not a destination. Maybe you're still trying to figure everything out, looking for answers, definitions, explanations, trying to know exactly where all this is leading. But let me tell you something that might bring you peace. You don't need to understand everything. Awakening is not a finish line. It's a flow, a movement. The dissolving of everything you thought was solid. Heraclitus said, "No man ever steps in the same river twice, for it is not the same river, and he is not the same man." That's how your process works. It's not linear. It's not logical. There's no manual. Some days you'll feel at peace, and the next you'll feel completely lost. That's not regression. That's maturation. It's your soul adjusting to a new frequency, a new state of consciousness that no longer fits into old questions. The poet Rumi said, "Try not to resist the changes that come your way. Instead, let life live through you. So don't pressure yourself. Don't try to rush it. You're already on the path." And the simple fact that you're here listening to this is proof. Awakening doesn't need to make sense right now. It just needs to be lived. Maybe you still don't have the words for what's happening, but something inside you has already started to change. And if you've made it this far, it's because something in you already recognizes this truth. Even in silence, you're not broken. You never were. What you're feeling is the fracture between the old and the new. It's your soul pushing on the door of consciousness, even if your body is still afraid to open it. Awakening hurts because it involves loss. You lose the comfort of autopilot. You lose control, you lose distractions, but in return you gain vision. And once you begin to truly see, you can no longer pretend to be asleep. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, once wrote in his journal, "Wake up. Remember that you are a human being. Your mission is not to flee from pain, but to walk through it with dignity. And maybe that's your mission right now. To walk through this moment, not as a victim, but as someone who knows they are waking up to something greater. If these words touch something inside you, write in the comments, 'I'm crossing.' It's not just a comment, it's a commitment to yourself, to your truth, to your silence. And if you know someone who's feeling lost, send them this video, because sometimes all someone needs to hear is, "You're not broken, you're just waking up."